All right, man. We're going to flip the script. Let's go over to the AFC. AFC has they have 3 games. All 3 of them are going to be interesting in their own right. Profiled very differently for each one. Let's start from the top, where we have the return of Tyreek Hill to Kansas City. Dolphins have come to a screeching halt as of late. Everybody knows that the Dolphins only have 1 win against a team who has a better than 500 record. I've seen that all over social media, so I'll say it just to remind you. I'm sure everybody that's watching this has seen it plenty of times. But Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins head back to Kansas City. The temperature, Brendan brought this up earlier, is going to be around 10 degrees in Kansas City. The Chiefs struggling offense as of late. Really surprising stuff out of Kansas City from this past year has been kind of the demise of this Andy Reid offense led by Patrick Mahomes. They're really just trying to find a receiver for Mahomes, and I think he is really one receiver away from picking things back up. But we'll see if Rashee Rice can keep his ascension going as we enter this potential offensive bout. But the thing is, this game is totaled 44 points, and it's only dropping. So Dolphins plus 3.5 road favorites. The point total sitting at 44 and only going down. Brendan, before I get into any of the numbers, before I get into the model projection, what do you think these vibes are for this game? Who do you think is going to win? What do you think the game script's going to look like? Let me know.
I just think the Dolphins are the AFC's Eagles, honestly. And how they are started so hot, and they're just been on a steady decline, and there's been injuries, like Bradley Chubb was out. Who was the other? Was it Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, he's a cornerback for the Dolphins.
Yeah, so Ramsey and their best pass rusher and their best,
Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, and their best DB are done. So the defense is looking pretty bad. And, I mean, Tyreek's just a little banged up while I was a little banged up. I don't know, man. I hate Patrick Mahomes. I really do. But I think they're going to win here. I think the weather is a huge factor. Kansas City being in the weather already, and they're at home in Arrowhead, which is very difficult to play in. And you've got the Beach Boys coming from Miami to come up there to a 10-degree game away in Arrowhead. I think the Chiefs are going to get the win here. It's going to be so ugly, but I think they do. I agree that the Chiefs have been not very good this year. However, they always find a way, unfortunately. And Mahomes have got Kelsey and Rashee Rice and Pacheco, and the defense is still stymied. They'll be all right.
Yeah. It's going to be ugly one way or another. I do hope there's more points scored. I do hope we see a little bit of ignition from both of these offenses. I think it's very possible, especially with a revenge game for Tyreek. He's going to want it. Watching the Dolphins' past 2 games, it seems like Tua is really only good at one particular throw, and it's that seam pass on the hash to Tyreek. That's it. Yeah. It seems like that's the only one that they can throw, and he can hit Tyreek in stride. They even lost like the deep ball on the sidelines that they used to hit at the beginning of the season. But something is off with the Dolphins. They've had horrible injury luck. Again, we mentioned their best pass rushers are out with injury. They brought in Melvin Ingram off the couch. So if you remember Melvin Ingram, he was a star for the Chargers for quite some time. He's an older guy. He's been on the, he was eating at home at Thanksgiving dinner with his family. And then a couple of weeks later, he gets a call from the Dolphins and out of desperation. So, and that's kind of where they're operating with on the defense side of the ball. Surprisingly, they've been able to keep it together. In terms of defensive ratings, they're kind of overachieving despite all of the injuries. Now, they're not putting up like elite numbers or top 10 numbers by any means, but they're still overachieving, all things considered. Looking at it from offensive EPA allowed per play, the latter half of the season, Miami ranks 15th. If you asked me that without looking, I would have said like mid-20s maybe, but 15th, upper half of the league. Kansas City, 6th. Their defense has been stellar So it's been weird watching this Kansas City team not have a elite offense, but rather they have an elite defense. That's something that's new. Rushing yards allowed, though, that's something I wanted to talk about. Kansas City is 17th, Miami is 7th. If Raheem Mostert comes back with the complement of course, Devon Achane, that's Miami's path to success.
It is.
Yep. They can stymie Pacheco, potentially, and really lean into their explosive run game they have with the dynamic 1-2 punch of Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. Devon Achane actually, if he ended the regular season with the highest yard per carry average of any running back in running back history, with over 7 yards per carry.
It was 8, wasn't it?
It was like 7.4.
That's
I think
insane.
I saw the closing number.
That is ridiculous.
He is truly one of the most explosive running backs in the league and arguably in NFL history. We'll see his career play out. I'm so excited for it. But that's their path to victory. Miami truly leaning on the running game. Never thought that would be the case, but if they can find success in the running game, control the clock a little bit, and outdo what Kansas City has had to do in terms of beating teams this year, Miami can do it. And surprisingly, the model has Miami in a close one. Near pick even, but rounding up, it has Miami 21-20, actually under the respected point total. So that's what surprises me, is the model would actually have Miami outright in comparison to Kansas City. So I'm going to ride with the model and take Miami to cover here. Take the +4, seeing +4, +3.5 on some books. And take them to win outright. I think they surprise everybody. I think Mike McDaniel comes out and surprises everybody. The one fallacy of Andy Reid that we've seen: time management and coaching when the game is on the line. He can call up one of the best offensive games you've ever seen, but clock management and certain strategies, in-game strategies, we've seen Andy Reid falter a little bit. So I think if the game were to come down late in the game, we could see Andy Reid slip up a little bit and Mike McDaniel come out victorious. We may see Mike McDaniel beat Andy Reid at his own game on the offensive side of the ball. So
it's interesting. I agree with you. The path to winning is going to be running the ball for Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I don't butcher this, but I'm 96% positive that Mike McDaniel was the run game coordinator for Mike Shanahan, I believe, in Washington.
Yep.
Which is interesting. But if you look at it, they really do. They've got the 1-2 punch of Mostert and Achane, and they run the ball very efficiently. And it's funny because everyone thought that they just passed the ball the whole time because Tua had a bunch of yards and Tyreek was on pace to get 2K, but really they run the ball really efficiently. So we'll have to see which side of the trenches hold up better.
Yeah, and that's where the Chiefs get the nod. They have the better offensive line and they have the better defensive line. So that is where Kansas City grades better. Certainly they're favored for a reason. They do have the better defense, hands down, but we'll see if Mike McDaniel can get crafty. I expect this to be fun, battle of the wits on both sides of the ball. It might get ugly. I expect it to get ugly, but I'm hoping for some points. We'll see. Model likes Miami. That's all I'll say. I'll leave it at that. Moving on. Rookie of the Year goes against Joe Flacco in his improbable return to the NFL. Two very contrasting dynamics at the quarterback position on both sides of the ball. We got a very explosive, dynamic rookie in CJ Stroud, and we have Joe Flacco, who's coming in and smooth, as cool as ever, laid back guy who's managing this offense like he's been in it for 20 years. So this game is awesome in its own right, and the fact that these two teams couldn't get any more different from each other as it stands. As impressive as the Browns' defense has been, they have been an entirely different unit away from Cleveland, as they were 31st ranked unit in points per game allowed on the road this season. Their 29.5 points per game allowed on the road is more than double what they surrendered on average at home this season. So with the Browns going to the Texans, we can see that their defense performs a lot drastically different than they do when they're at home. And of course, with this being in Texans, the conditions will be much better indoors. It won't be the cold Cleveland, nasty weather, so they can't play the Browns football that they're used to. So, luckily enough, the Texans draw this game at home. Now, we look at this game as well. Texans, elite offense led by CJ Stroud. Nico Collins is back, and they're firing on all cylinders. The Texans have one of the best passing defenses, but have one of the worst rushing defenses. So the path to success for the Browns is to lean into the running game and then hopefully create some explosive plays in the passing game. But all things considered, I think they can do that. Now, I think the Texans having a elite passing defense certainly helps because the Browns, surprisingly, have found a lot of success in the passing game with Joe Flacco, Amari Cooper, and company. So that certainly bodes well for the Texans, but it doesn't bode well that the Browns have a really, really solid rushing unit as well. Brendan, Browns are 2.5-point road favorites coming into Houston. The point total sitting at 44. What do you feel about this game? Who do you think is going to win? What's going on in your head here?
So interesting enough, you talk about the Texans pass defense and where the Browns get. The last time they played was when Amari Cooper had 265 receiving yards.
Yeah, that is crazy too.
And their leading rusher had 25. And that was Jerome Ford. Which is crazy. And that was in Houston also. But yeah, that was just an insane game. But this is so sad because I want both of them to win. And they're just not going to. That's not how it works. But because the Browns put 36 on the Texans 3 weeks ago, solely through Amari Cooper, and the Texans have been hot, they get hotter.
Ooh, okay.
They defend home field, and CJ Stroud ascends to play the Ravens next week because, actually, maybe they wouldn't because it's the lowest seeding. But either way, I like the Texans, man. I think
so. You like the legend of Joe Flacco to continue?
No, so I like the Texans.
Oh! I thought you said you like the Browns.
No. Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to be Confucius there. Yeah, man, I've got the Texans at home. D'Amico Ryan should win Coach of the Year. Just saying, they literally won the freaking division. But yeah, he continues it, and they win.
Yeah,
they just win.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up too because I had it queered up. So the Browns did go to Houston and shred the Texans, and so that's what I was going to get at. So Browns, they currently sit at the number one overall team in terms of offensive EPA per play allowed on the defensive side of the ball. Texans are sitting 13th, so a top 15 unit, relatively surprising. So it's funny because their passing defense keeps it in the mix. Their rushing defense does not. Offensive EPA, Browns 28th, Texans 15th. So there's a chance that we saw an anomaly in the Browns-Texas games on Christmas Eve where Amari Cooper and Joe Flacco absolutely went scorched earth on this Texans defense. Now, we have to take that in consideration, though, because they could absolutely do it again. They have the blueprint to do it again. So what's stopping them? Well, I'm going to roll with first, it's hard to beat the same team twice, especially a well-coached team.
Agreed.
So I think D'Amico Ryans will make the adjustments and this defense will rally. They'll be extra motivated, and I think they'll clean up in coverage a little bit. Texans, earlier I said that they're the number one passing defense. I did not mean overall passing defense. I meant the number one passing defense in touchdowns allowed. That's it. That they're actually middle of the road in terms of all playoff defenses and EPA per dropback, ahead of the Cowboys, Bucks, and Packers. So interesting note there. But I think that the Texans, they come in, CJ Stroud's like, he's healthy, he's ready to go. They have the momentum. And I think that they won't let that happen again. I think this Texans team will not let what Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper did to their defense on Christmas Eve happen again. I think they're going to come in with a better game plan. CJ Stroud is fully healthy, unlike the game where they last faced off. And they'll be ready to go. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight. And the fact that this is in Houston bodes even well. And I know, I'm probably going to have some angry Cleveland fan in my comments saying, how can the games not matter? They just did this in Houston. So different circumstances. And if you watch the NFL, you know that it's hard to beat the same team twice. The projections, the model has this game as a pick even at 21-21. So right on line with Vegas, a little bit lower. But it does think that the Texans can keep it closer than what Vegas expects. I'm on Texans +3. I took them at +3. It's +3, +2.5, depending on which book you look at. I, would recommend book shopping if you can get the +3 line. That's what I got. But I like the Texans to cover. I like them to win outright. I'm full on CJ Stroud here. I think that he's going to come away victorious and continue his special rookie season.
It's an incredible story and team for the whole year. Like, it's just, I don't know what was their total wins at 5 preseason?
It was 5. Well, yeah, 5.5 and 6.5 for the Colts. Remember,
ridiculous.
You and I, we both called that.
I liked it.
They would go over as well as the Packers. And you know what else we called? The Jaguars would go under. And we caught some extreme heat for that. And look at us now. Yeah. So the Colts and the Texans, they for one had the easiest schedule in the league, but with their rosters were not bad. They just had really bad quarterbacks last year.
Correct.
So CJ Stroud not being the teammate elevator that he is, goes in here and wins in a tight one.
I mean, just think, like, if they still had Tank Dell. If they still had Tank Dell, and if I think Noah Brown got injured a little bit, if they had everybody healthy, like, they just got Will Anderson back.
God.
Defensive player of the year, or defensive rookie of the year.
He's a dog.
Offensive rookie of the year. Anyway, it's going to be a great game. Go
Derek
Texans.
Stingley, yeah. Texans here. But, and it's funny because whichever team wins, it's going to be special. Yep. You have a special story coming out of whichever team wins. And so me not being a fan of either one of these teams, I'm a Falcons fan, sadly. We did fire Arthur Smith. Thank God. But yeah, I'll come out and I'll be happy with whatever the outcome as long as we get a good game. So moving on to the last game of Super Wildcard Weekend. This game could be nasty. Bills play the Steelers. Steelers go to Buffalo and play in a very low projected totaled game. Steelers are +9.5 as they head into Buffalo. The point total is sitting at 35.5. It's going to get ugly. Brendan, what were the weather conditions expected for this game?
I think it was mid-20s, kind of windy. But both of them are used to that. They're both up. They're probably not even that far from each other. Probably less than about 200 miles from each other, maybe less.
Yeah. So
Bird Buffalo.
So something to take a note here. I think it also might snow. Potentially. No, don't quote me on that. I saw potentially might snow. It says snow showers likely, cloudy with a high near 27, breezy, chance of precipitation. So at that point it would be snow, 60%. So it's going to be a slog of a game. And we see that on the point total at 35.5, which is crazy because the Steelers are nearly 10-point underdogs. So Buffalo's coming off of a really exciting win against Miami. Kind of felt like they needed a little bit of luck to win. Kudos to the Bills and their success. They certainly turned it around. But, talking about the Miami game, if they didn't have the kick return for a touchdown, we may be looking at a little bit of a different game. So again,
that was awesome.
Not taking away. It was truly special. This team,
cool.
They have the ability to beat anybody in any facet of the game, offense, defense, or special teams. And as we're previewing this, the Bills' defensive roster, comparative to the talent that they had, they lost guys like Matt Milano at the beginning of the season. They lost Tre'Davious White in that London game. So with the lack of talent that they have on the defensive side of the ball, Sean McDermott's done a great job of forcing this team to overachieve compared to the actual roster that they have. If we scroll over, or if I scroll over, if we look at some of the EPA stuff, Buffalo's 8th overall in offensive EPA per play allowed. They're top 10 in the league. And looking at their roster, their defensive roster, I would not have guessed that. But Sean McDermott working his voodoo magic. But flip it over, same with the Steelers. Unfortunately, they did lose TJ Watt due to an MCL injury. But Steelers 10th overall in offensive EPA per play allowed on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, the disparity is the offense, where Buffalo is 2nd overall in EPA, Steelers 21st. And I have to bring up the idea, I expect Mason Rudolph to start, but I would not be shocked if they started Kenny Pickett.
No.
I know that there's some controversy about what should happen in this game, but I expect them to roll out Mason Rudolph. I won't be surprised if they go back to Kenny Pickett. But I'm going to preview this game and break it down in the idea that Mason Rudolph will be playing. So, Brendan, Steelers are your team, man. I want to hear how you feel about this game and what you think is going to happen. Steelers plus 9.5 on the road in Buffalo. Let me know what you think.
Let me tell you, I'm going to give you, I think the highest percentage is that the Steelers lose this game. Okay, but let me paint a picture of how they're going to win this game. Okay, first of all, I think they're going to cover because I think the under is going to hit because the weather's going to kind of suck and it's just going to be kind of gross.
Yeah.
So, because of that, a couple of big plays away from changing the whole game. I think that the only way, and you better clip this, okay? The only way the Steelers win is if they have 3 takeaways. Josh Allen will throw at least one pick. At least one. He averages like 1.1. He'll throw at least one pick. But if they can, the only way they're going to win this game is if Josh Allen loses this game. Truly. I just don't think they have the firepower on offense to keep up, but I do think it'll be a low-scoring game. So I think there's a couple avenues to the Steelers winning this game. However, it's got to come through the defense, and not having TJ Watt is huge.
Yeah, and Steelers are actually the 4th best team in terms of EPA per dropback allowed, and of the teams in the playoffs, including the 1 seeds who aren't playing in the Ravens and the 49ers. So there's a small chance, but there's a chance that, and you know what? It's funny because I think if you ask any Steelers fan, they would want this type of game because I think that opens the doors for Mike Tomlin to do his voodoo magic where he drags the team down to play really nasty football and takes advantage of it. So
awesome.
I think that the Steelers are actually happy that it's going to be in bad conditions because that bodes well for the way that their team plays the game. I think the Steelers play nasty football better than anybody. So I think if they had it their way, this is what they would have chosen. This is the game, and they would have wanted a ugly, bad weather slugfest where your defense is really going to have to be the primary component of the game. Now, looking at the model, what the model says, and again, I say this in every tweet, the model doesn't account for injuries, weather, or vibes, denoting weather here. Since it doesn't know that it's going to be snowy and below 30 degrees, the model has the Bills -7 at a game total where the scores look to be about 24-17 Bills. So definitely higher than the projected point total, and the point spread being a little bit lower. But again, that doesn't take into weather, so you have to read the fine print. So with that being said, I think the Bills, I'm taking the Bills. It's way more probabilistically likely, but I have to give the credit to the Steelers and the fact that, again, if this was the type of game that they wanted to play in, this would be it. this is the type of game that the Steelers and Mike Tomlin can outdo the other team. They can play the gross games better than every other team in the league. So I wouldn't put it past them if they kept it close. I wouldn't put it past them if they, forced the Bills to win on a last-minute field goal. Yeah, but
I like a 20-17. 20-17 Buffalo.
Right.
So I think pretty accurate.
Yeah, and the way I can see this happening, like Bills covering, is like I could see it 17-7. Due to the script of the way that this game profiles, I could see it being like 17-7 or 20-10. I could definitely see that. So for me, it's tough to sit here and take a spread because it's such a big spread, especially in a playoff game. I kind of want to take the Steelers, but in a game where I think there's going to be a tremendous lack of offense, I don't really like necessarily taking a side on that. If I had to choose, gun to my head, I'm taking the Bills in the event that I don't think the Steelers will be able to score in bad weather and against this overachieving Bills defensive unit. But the thing is that I don't necessarily have the confidence that the Bills will be able to put up a lot of points. So that's where the caveat is. 42% of the total tickets are on the Steelers. Consequently, that means the Bills have 58% of the tickets. However, 60% of the money is on Steelers to cover +10. So take that as you will, with a grain of salt, whatever you may be. But this game is going to be ugly, and I'm low-key really excited for it because I'm just very interested to see how both teams broach this game. It's definitely going to be a strategy game at this point. We'll see. Mike Tomlin, he's one of the best to ever do it, hands down. So he will absolutely keep them in this game, regardless of who trots out there at quarterback. And I expect him to pull out some voodoo and make this game closer than what Bills fans would like it to be.
If we play Pickett, we'll get rocked. We'll get rocked.
Really?
Yep.
Do you think it's like team locker room vibes?
Yeah, bad locker room, yeah.
Fair.
We'll get rocked.
All right, man. Hey, that wraps it up for our wild card weekend preview, man. We got tons of games to watch, guys. We appreciate you watching. We will be back here next week to talk divisional rounds. Don't miss out. We'll talk to you guys later.